Hello everyone and welcome back to game week 4 of the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Premiership, where you join myself, Ryan Sipple, alongside the familiar voice of Charlie McClellan for the action between West Bromwich Albion and Leeds. Let's go through the squads to begin with. Before we bring you the action live, this should be a great game. West Bromwich Albion, Harry Bestwick, Lucas Chrysler, Chris Gordon, Zach Dickey, Matt Gilbert, Brad Bates, Ollie Rock, Barris Innell. And for Leeds, trying to continue their fine form. I think it was a 7-0 victory over Muscle Warriors earlier today. Jack Maxwell, Ethan Fisher, Lewis Harris, Dan Rigby, Dylan Kelsall and Summer Rice. I'll show you the live league table so you can see what a potential 3 points does for the likes of Leeds and Teesside, currently preparing to kick off Encore A. How tight it is at the top and how important it is for all teams, certainly in those top 4 positions, to maintain momentum. Charlie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Delighted to be back for Premiership football after the Championship last weekend in a bit of a different capacity. And I'm just looking at this table now and thinking, oh my God, because this is one of the most mental Premiership tables I've ever seen.
It absolutely is. There's no saying about that, but obviously, you've got 4 points that separate the top 4. But the thing that I see is the discrepancy between the games played. Greenbank 16 to the likes of Teesside's 13. So it's not necessarily in the likes of the hands of Greenbank, but they're getting the job done. We had the pleasure of commentating their Jonga Group WFA Cup 3rd round tie against Leeds on Monday, where we were commentating from our respective abodes, you in Sheffield, myself in Kent, so it was a unique thing to be commentating from afar, so it's nice to be back alongside one another for this one. Are we thinking Leeds are the favourites on this?
They're the favourites, yeah, but I was worried by what I saw from Leeds on Monday night. I saw real weakness, and I know going away to Greenbank, a notoriously slippy court, penalties, it's tough, and Greenbank are a top side, but they lacked real sort of bite and aggression, and I wonder how many times they're going to get away with that. West Brom will have their tails up. They won in the Cup midweek, obviously on Thursday night, a 4-0 win over clubmates Throssels, so they'll be feeling relatively confident going into this one and be thinking they can definitely get a point, and if they do take points off Leeds, it'll be massive for the title race. It's a big day for West Brom, Leeds now, and then the old enemy Aspire later on. But if they can get a point on the board here, it would be great. We hear all the time that West Brom are looking great in training, and they just can't quite replicate that on the National League stage. Well, this is a big enough game to really test them out in that regard.
Exactly. Obviously, referencing that table we showed you a few minutes ago, the gap between West Brom and the pack above them is too great. They're not going to be challenging for anything meaningful at the top of the division, but they're certainly playing for pride. They're playing for continuity, chemistry that they can then potentially take over into the Jonga Group WFA Cup, where they've been drawn against Greenbank. So that'll be a fascinating affair, probably the pick of the bunch when it comes to the quarterfinals, do you think?
Yeah, 100%. That one, and I'm really fascinated to see Newcastle Middlesbrough as well, just because that's one of the ones that could go either way. You'd expect pretty dominant wins in Teesside, Sevenoaks and Aspire versus GBG, and then that final 4 is looking so tasty, isn't it?
The top 4, certainly within a Premiership context, have all managed to avoid each other in the quarter-final draw. So there's a very high likelihood that we will see Aspire, Greenbank, Teesside and West Brom, apologies, a few technical difficulties, but no, it's fascinating stuff, and it's paired with this incredible Premiership division. I think you alluded to the fact that we were here for Game Week 4 of the Championship, and in its own right, that is equally as fascinating, and I cannot wait for that to conclude in just 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's really condensed, isn't it? I mean, I'm on a 3-week holiday from uni, and by the time I'm back at uni, we'll be done. Powerchair football for the season in the league will be finished, and then it will be all about Derby, but there's a lot to be done before that. Leeds with 2 tougher fixtures this weekend. Obviously, this one, I'd say, is one that can always slip up because West Brom are West Brom, aren't they? But tomorrow morning's the big one for Leeds, up against Greenbank. Again, that clash that we saw on Monday night, and you picked up that table, and it's Greenbank. I mean, it comes back to that old question that a lot of people in football talk about. Would you rather have, going into the back end of the season, games in hand or points on the board? Greenbank have points on the board. Teesside, Leeds and Aspire have the games in hand. It's a really tough one, isn't it?
Do you know what? I would say points on the board. We've seen games in hand really come back to bite teams. So that kind of question will be asked and answered across the final 2 weekends as the captains are in the centre. Hopefully, Charlie, as we did in the Championship, we have the functionality of replays and clipping. So if we can get that right, we can analyse and we can dissect at the half-time break. So Jeff Lewis in the centre has Lewis Harris to his side, who will have kick-off. A moment of calm before the inevitable storm. Give me a score prediction, Charlie.
Tough, very tough.
I agree.
I'm going to go with a bold one. No, I'm not actually. 2-1 Leeds. I was tempted to go 1-1, but no, I'll go 2-1 Leeds. I do think there is capacity, though, for West Brom in this game.
I think we've said it before, Charlie. Whilst there isn't necessarily a title for West Brom to chase, I could see them as the great disruptors in this title race for the other 4, with everyone set to meet one another in either Game Weeks 4 or 5. The teams are lined up. So I'll be able to go through the squads. Chris Gordon, Lucas Chrysler, Harry Beswick and Ollie Rock for the 5-time champions. And for Leeds, chasing their first, Ethan Fisher, Lewis Harris, Dan Rigby and Dylan Kelsall, the familiar 4, the fantastic 4. That'll be looking to put on a show and carry on the fine form showed in this morning's 7-0 thrashing of Muscle Warriors. First fixture of the weekend for West Bromwich Albion, but they're bringing form into this, having bypassed and dispatched their sister club, West Bromwich Albion Throttles, in the Cup on Thursday. We get the thumbs up, and we are officially underway as Lewis Harris plays it straight into Dylan Kelsall. It just nicks up, which allows Harry Beswick to push it back over to Chris Gordon.
Dylan Kelsall was expecting Ethan Fisher to be back there in that sort of square of 4, but he was a lot deeper than potentially would have wanted to be.
One thing we did see in the Cup on Monday, Charlie, was how almost disappointing Leeds were from those set-piece deliveries. And immediately, within the first 45 seconds, they scored, because open play, there isn't many question marks. That was fantastic timing from Dan Rigby. Lewis Harris met it with his front bumper, but I have to say, disappointing from West Bromwich Albion's defence.
Yeah, very disappointing. A brilliant goal, though. Lewis Harris perfectly times that. And they just need to calm down here a bit, West Brom. It's just all a bit tetchy. They took that free kick. They took that kick off early just there. Just need to chill, because Leeds have started very composed, and question marks about them after the Monday night defeat to Greenbank in the Cup. Well, they're looking to put it right here, and West Brom really under the cosh.
I think I'm right in saying that this is the first time that Dylan Kelsall has faced his former side in the National League. Lewis Harris, of course, formerly of West Bromwich Albion, so one of their old players coming back to haunt them.
What I'm interested to see here from West Brom is, will they be able to create? We've seen that Chrysler and Gordon can be solid defensively together, but we haven't really seen West Brom manage to pose an attacking threat to any of the top sides this season. They've managed to take points off Greenbank and take points off Aspire, but not been able to score, and I'd love to see a bit of expansive play from West Brom here. A little bit more familiar sort of four-out football that we've come to know and love.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, if you look at the goal scored from the 25-26 season for West Bromwich Albion, it's not what it was from seasons gone by. They're only averaging 1.43 goals a game, which is not bad for most teams in the division, but West Brom aren't most. That's only 22 league goals across their 13 games. If you compare that with the likes of Leeds, who have scored 40, well, upwards of 50 goals now with their goals from Gameweek 4. It's incredible stuff, as Dylan Kelsall met by Lucas Chrysler. 2-on-1 in favour of Leeds. I think Lucas just venturing out with his box. And this is where Leeds were really disappointed on Monday. Can they right that wrong? Double their advantage here via this indirect free kick.
Yeah, this was the sort of uncomfortable situation for them. They just could not manage to get one of these set pieces around the box to work. They had two in quick succession right at the end of normal time. They just couldn't make it happen. Will they change that here?
It's a cross to Dan Rigby. Was never going to trouble Lucas Chrysler, who covered that left-hand post. I think Lucas Chrysler deemed a little bit too aggressive there as he was trying to force it up the court. So direct free kick this time, which slightly increases their options. Dan Rigby across the box to Dylan Kelsall, cleanly struck. It just fires off that left hand upright. Secondary effort from Ethan Fisher, not before a 2-on-1 awarded. Ethan is celebrating. I'm not quite sure he knew the goal had been disallowed.
Yeah, Rigby and Fisher are judged to have been too close, but that reverse spin of Ethan Fisher is so dangerous, and West Brom got a sample of it there. They'll hopefully be looking to avoid it for the rest of this game.
It's like moths to a flame in the centre. Very high prevalence of the 2-on-1s within 5 minutes.
Yeah, brave team selection from Chris Gordon to go with probably his two most inexperienced wingers in the squad, and it's not quite worked out yet. You wonder what time he will look to the bench for that international quality of Zach Dickey.
Yeah, Brad Bates and Matt Gilbert as well, so not short of firepower. But this is what I kind of wanted West Brom to do when they knew that a title was potentially out of reach. As across the box, I'm not quite sure how Dylan Kelsall threaded the eye of the needle there. He needed Dan Rigby to be far much more advanced, but I never saw a gap, so I don't suspect Dan did either. But as I was saying, it's good from Chris Gordon, even if it means being a bit more vulnerable, upskilling those younger, those inexperienced players, putting them into the deep end is how they'll best develop and grow and adopt this brave four-out system that West Brom have pioneered. think it's almost like a short-term sacrifice for the long-term goal as the ball ricochets high above the substitutes and spectators to Charlie and I's right.
Yeah, risky business that.
Dan Rigby shapes to take maybe the front bumper of Ethan Fisher. Will it make it away as far as Dylan Kelso on the far side? Ethan Fisher wants it. Just going to have to wait a second, as we mentioned on the previous game. There's such short margins around the court.
Dan Rigby prepares his spin from such a long way away, because this is the most threatened I've ever felt by a corner taker in the commentary area down here.
Fired it into Ethan Fisher, who's going to try and force it over the line. Yeah, we are about 1.5 meters away from the corner, which will be just out of your shot. Now Dylan Kelso on the alternate wing. No real clear options, potentially back to Lewis Harris, into Dylan Kelso, across the box, never going to trouble Chris Gordon at that first chance. Nice little feint, just draws Ethan Fisher in, trying to create that space for Harry Bestwick. It's fairly open play. It's certainly settled from that opening minute.
Lewis Harris has been brilliant in this game so far. The goal scorer, and that pass down the line to Dylan Kelso was really intelligent.
Yeah, I think Lewis Harris will be really disappointed. That missed penalty on Monday sent Leeds crashing out the cup. I think there was high hopes and expectations almost that Leeds would not only progress through that game, but the competition as a whole. They had their sights firmly set on both Derby and then beyond that, St George's Park. They still have a chance to be there if they win the league, but it's a big, big ask, with Teesside, Aspire and Greenbank all fighting for that top spot as well.
Yeah, of course, there's a world where they could end up coming second in the league, and in the case of a double from Aspire or Teesside or Greenbank, they could find themselves at St George's Park, but nobody wants to miss that one live on TV.
Very condensed in this final third as Chris Gordon tries to relieve pressure. It needed Harry Bestwick to be a little bit wider.
Slightly better from West Brom this, moving it.
Yeah, as mentioned, they've definitely settled, but Leeds still look incredibly dangerous on the attack. Dylan Kelso hasn't really been able to impart any of his impressive influence as of yet, but still a lot of football left to be played. That's nice combination, but Ollie Rott's ever so slightly too close to Chris Gordon in the centre. I thought they probably did enough there. It's a very, very tight 2-on-1. But I do understand the rationale behind Jeff Lewis's decision. Nice pick off from Dylan Kelso into the 180 of Dan Rigby. Exactly 10 minutes play. West Bromwich Albion 0. Leeds 1. Lewis Harris within 45 seconds. Since then, West Brom have looked far more structured, harder to break down, but they're yet to impose themselves in an offensive sense as Ethan Fisher switches it out to really nice, intent execution, not necessarily there. Harry Bestwick trying to anticipate that rebound, but Ethan Fisher so good at just relieving pressure. You can see Teesside a goal to the good on court A. It's Chris Gordon and Colin Gordon ready, their first substitute. And it's the first time I've ever commentated on Zach Dickey in the National League. So it's good to see him get on. See if he can change momentum in their favour. It looks like an initial switch up of shape. Lucas Chrysler currently looks like he's one of the wide wingers, but I'm sure it's a very fluid system that they're looking to adopt. Currently a pivot pairing of Zach Dickey and Chris Gordon.
Contact on the back of Ethan Fisher, so it will be a free kick for Leeds.
This is a good opportunity for Leeds. Intrigued to see what they do with it. They're all very narrow at the moment. Maybe into the front bumper of Dylan Kelsey, takes it in reverse, or certainly tries to. Blocked out by Chris Gordon. Lewis Harris out to Dan Rigby. It's so congested in this bottom left-hand corner.
A key touch there from Ollie Rock. Just as that ball was approaching Dan Rigby, it took it out of the way of his spin. Perhaps not one that many people would have picked up on, but a very important intervention there. And very good from Ollie Rock to get it there as well. So he's having a good game in a defensive sense. Just will be looking to offer more going forward now.
Lucas Chrysler into Chris Gordon, looking to switch the play, does so beautifully. Heavy touch from Ollie Rock, just takes it away from him. That's really disappointing, because that would have been a good goal-scoring opportunity.
Yeah, much better from West Brom. He really just needed to show a bit of nuance with that first touch there, Ollie Rock. He'll be really disappointed with himself, because they were away, West Brom.
It's heavy contact as Zach Dickey just rotates round into the side of Dan Rigby. The officials are communicating. I suspect it's going to go against West Bromwich Albion. And Zach Dickey just gets a word from Jeff Lewis. But just back to that opportunity from Ollie Rock. If you feel you're not going to be able to control it smoothly, go for the attempt at the first time of asking.
Yeah, it's a tough skill. It is a tough skill to get that deft touch. Only the world's top wide players can do that on a consistent basis.
Test my memory now, Charlie, but the sensational goal that he scored in the Club World Cup, was that a first-time engagement, or was it a two-touch 180?
First time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It shows that he can do it. We regard that as the goal of the competition, one of the best goals I've seen in recent years. So it shows, why don't you look to replicate it? Because there was no options in attack. Taking the two-touch never really would have benefited Ollie and his team. As Dylan Kelsey flicks it into the box, Lucas Chrysler on the edge goes back to Zach Dickey. It's been a good game so far, though.
Yeah, it has. The first couple of minutes looked really poor for West Brom, but they've grown into it.
Chris Gordon looking to bypass Dan Rigby. Now Chris Gordon, Ethan Fisher against one another. That's a trademark from Ethan Fisher. And this is that four-out system of West Bromwich Albion, which can be capitalised on. Any loose balls will be fired into an unopposed goal. Intrigued to almost observe Chris Gordon and Ethan Fisher. Many deem Ethan the heir to Chris's throne as kind of the England goalkeeper. and brave 4-out kind of composer. Because the 4-out is defined by that fourth attacking player contributing, which is by default the goalkeeper.
Yeah, definitely. He's got all the skills to do it.
I'll show you the live league standings at the half-time break, just 4 minutes away into Chrysler. Little bit of contact between Kelsall and Zach Dickey. Ollie Rock would have wanted a little bit more accuracy on that front bumper into the United States international. Back into Tracy Mayr's squad, certainly following the recent USA camp a week or two ago. Not long now as Dylan Kelsall very aggressive in trying to reverse that over the line. Doesn't want to give anything away. The correct decision from Jeff Lewis.
What he's moaning about there. That is ridiculous.
No, most definitely the correct decision.
Literally in reverse, just steaming towards goal, was not going to stop.
It's a great battle between these two. I don't know if it necessarily translates over the stream, but the metal on metal sound ringing out across the Lee Westwood Sports Centre.
Yeah, West Brom are firmly in this game, still. A second Leeds goal would make it really uncomfortable. Oh, the red card. Oh.
It looked like, because his red card is in front of his yellow card, it looked like he was going to send Zach Dickey off, but thankfully for him and West Bromwich Albion, just a yellow, but something he's going to have to be very mindful of with so much football left to be played, and that physical, fiery nature at the forefront of the way he plays. There was a gap to be capitalised on there by Dylan Kelsall, but it was closed brilliantly at the last second by Chris Gordon. But they're starting to knock on the door again, and a second goal this close to the half-time break will almost certainly completely deflate West Bromwich Albion, who, beyond the opening goal from Leeds, maybe have been the better of the two sides. Certainly their defence has been far superior to Leeds' attack.
Yeah, they'll be really frustrated that they conceded that goal early on. It was a really sloppy one as well. A good goal from Leeds, don't get me wrong, but they just had left loads of players up and got completely sort of drawn out of shape.
They hadn't had a second to set, had they, in their formation, in their setup. An early goal will so often do that. Zach Dickey not quite cute enough to keep it in play, although the intention. And now we are approaching the final minute and a last opportunity for Dan Rigby to take one of these wide corner kicks, or I think it's a kick in actually as the ball rolls away.
I think it definitely is a kick in, but
yeah,
ended up being positioned more like a corner.
Lewis Harris, switch of play. I would have liked to have seen Dylan Kelsall try and switch to Dan Rigby there.
Yeah, or even just play it back into Harris or take it wide himself. The shot was never going to get through the chairs there.
Kelsall. Back to Harris, cut out by Ollie Rock. Yeah, be intrigued to kind of hear the team talk to the respective sides. Because the longer it continues like this, I think the more it will frustrate Leeds. I know they have that goal advantage, but it's a precarious one.
Yeah, I do think they've sort of been a 3 and a 1 in this game anyway. Ethan Fisher has been very rarely involved in the attack, but I think it would be even more so if this game carries on like this.
I wince every time that Zach Dickey drives towards that ball and an opponent. Just those just tuning in, Zach Dickey on a yellow card. Leeds took the lead within the 45 seconds via former West Bromwich Albion man Lewis Harris. Of course, Lewis Harris and Dylan Kelsall, I think, won the league with West Bromwich Albion. blocked off the side of Chris Gordon. Now a minute, or certainly approaching a minute over the regulation 20. We've had a lot of stoppages though, but Jeff Lewis does glance at his watch. And that does signal the end of the first half. Fiery, frantic, currently in the favour of Leeds, but not by much. I'll show you the live league standings so you can see what a potential 3 points does for the Yorkshire base side. Puts them back top of the table, but they have played, they've played a game fewer than Greenbank, and they have a more superior goal difference. I think they'll be looking at Teesside because a win for them would take them up to 40 points on with the same amount of games played, but Teesside have 2 5-fixture weekends and condensed, compact, competitive ones at that. Thank you to everyone that's tuning in, to myself and Charlie. We will be back very, very shortly for the second half. Hello everyone and welcome back to the second half of West Bromwich Albion versus Leeds in Gameweek 4 of the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Premiership. You're joining myself, Ryan Sipple, alongside Charlie McClellan for the action live. Leeds scored their first within 45 seconds. Since that, West Brom have been far more assured and structurally sound, and a double substitute at the break. I think they're going for this, Charlie. Brad Bates and Matt Gilbert on in place of Lucas Chrysler and Ollie Rock.
Yeah, you'd hope so. This is a four that, to be honest, this is the four that I was kind of expecting to start the game. I really saw this being the team that Chris Gordon went with. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this works now. They've given themselves an okay foothold in the game since going 1-0 down. They now need to capitalise and try and make something of themselves here.
Already, they're looking to expand the court, go backwards in order to advance forwards as Zach Dickey. That's disappointing there. That crossfield ball to Matt Gilbert was never on.
Yeah, risky that as well, because obviously both central players pushed up and there was nobody back guarding the goal.
And that, how many goals do we see West Brom concede from opponents just firing it towards an unopposed goal line? They won't want that to be a recurring theme in this one, because there is potential points on the line. You have to find that equaliser first as Brad Bates directs a pick-off back to Zach Dickey, but that pick-off didn't necessarily have the accuracy. So Zach Dickey kind of scrambling to position himself best to receive it. The margins are so fine. Lewis Harris down to Dan Rigby, just guided out of play by Matt Gilbert. That's better. Brad Bates takes it in reverse. Again, a heavy touch. Takes it away from a West Bromwich Albion winger.
Yeah, he'll be frustrated with that, Brad Bates, but he did so well there, Brad, to just get that ball. Potentially a bit of a rushed free kick for West Brom. Could have taken their time and set up properly.
You can feel this game really opening up. West Brom are being brave. They're going for it. They're not sitting back, and I think their personnel allows them to be more attacking. Back to Zach Dickey. No real options on. He's going to try and push it down to Brad Bates, but the ball never had the legs to reach the number 19 winger. And Ethan Fisher so strong. He's almost going to use that yellow card of Zach Dickey against him.
Yeah, he was the one on the yellow in the week against Greenbank, which did limit his play. Been very squeaky clean. It's been a relatively quiet game by Ethan Fisher's standards. He's not managed to push up particularly often, but he's up now.
Yeah, Lewis Harris being the predominant central player, but it's a very fluid system that they adopt, whereby we can see any of the four players of Leeds be in any of the four positions at any one time. You're seeing all 8 players in the half of West Bromwich Albion. Dylan Kelsall just providing a screen. So Ethan Fisher to take down Rigby on the far left. Lewis Harris's front bumper may invite this, but he'll do extremely well to squeeze it through, and so nearly did. A brilliant save from Zach Dickey.
I can't believe that's not found its way in. I really just thought when they made that connection with the front bumper that was going in. Zach Dickey, great reflexes to just scoop that off the line. Really needed to. Keeps his side ball in the game.
Dan Rigby to take. His teammate Jack Maxwell just has to move out the way, as we alluded to in the first 20 minutes. Dan Rigby needs plenty of space to generate that almost division leading set piece. Can strike a ball so cleanly again. Front bumper of Ethan Fisher potentially, that is the intended choice. But Zach Dickey and Chris Gordon moving with one another, and Ethan Fisher too aggressive, just into the side of Zach Dickey. Free kick for West Bromwich Albion.
So they need to try and continue that positive start to the half. West Brom, they've been pinned back a little bit now. Heavy contact. This time Dylan Kelso are judged to have been reversing in. Not necessarily sure about that. He's not happy, and I can see why, to be fair. That looked like a really frustrating one for Dylan Kelso. I'm not sure whether he was the one reversing in or whether Zach Dickey's just hit the back of his chair.
It's a big smile on the face of Zach Dickey.
There is. Dylan Kelso was very rattled, is that the word there? He was really frustrated with that decision.
We will see now as there's more contact off the ball, this time between Lewis Harris and Matt Gilbert. Pete Taylor on the far side has his flag raised. I think they're going to need to get a hold of this game, maybe bring the players in, because tempers are boiling over.
Yeah, this is incredibly bitty, and Matt Gilbert's head just went off the headrest there. Don't really know, I can't see the actual contact.
Let's just bring in that chance from Leeds, fired into Zach Dickey. Probably the best opportunity of the second half. Beyond that, not a great deal of note, but we've only played 6 minutes as Jeff Lewis still communicating with Pete Taylor. Was it going to be a set ball to resume play yet?
Yeah.
So obviously deemed a very 50-50 coming together.
Straight into touch on the left-hand side. And a big collision. Penalty kick for West Brom. This is a big moment. Reversed, the Leeds player deemed to have reversed in. Zach Dickey.
Zach, I think he's been deemed the aggressor. Just trying to understand the decision. Ethan Fisher is shaking his head.
I'm not sure what's going on. I'm really confused as to what is going on here. I have no idea.
Interesting.
Right.
I want to understand what the decision is, why he's communicating with Zach so much.
I've just had a word from Marcus Harrison, who is the king of the dark arts, and he's told me that apparently Zach Dickey celebrated the penalty quite aggressively in the faces of one of the Leeds players, which, to be fair, he was driving around screaming.
So this, a huge moment, not just in the game, but potential title charge. As Chris Gordon, saved brilliantly by Ethan Fisher, didn't jump, read the intention of his international teammate and keeps that 1 goal advantage intact.
Well, Chris Gordon looks frustrated, but there are more frustrated faces. The Greenbank squad to my right, the Aspire squad up the other end look furious, because that's maybe a huge moment in this title race.
Absolutely, and Leeds will want to bounce back. You spoke about Dylan Kelso potentially being rattled. I think the squad as a whole is struggling with the intensity of this game, but how many times have we said it's never necessarily about a technical or tactical skill set of Leeds? It's going to be the psychological battle, which is either going to win or lose them this title.
Yeah, I worry for Zach Dickey here, because he's talking constantly, and it's fine when it's at the teammates, but he's on the yellow, he's been warned. This game feels like he's on a knife edge this game and could boil over at any moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jeff Lewis goes to his book on more than one occasion. As again, very heavy contact between Zach Dickey and Dylan Kelsall. It goes in the favour, and that is going to be a red card. And it's the right decision, it must be said, from Jeff Lewis. You're saying he's on a knife's edge. You cannot play like that in a game of this magnitude and continue to try and bend the rules in your favour.
So it's a disappointing one for Zach Dickey. He's been on a warning. He's been walking that tightrope for quite a while, since the booking in the first half.
And now it will be very much firefighting from West Brom. They've struggled in an offensive sense with 4 players, and he's escorted out of the Lee Westwood Sports Centre by Jeff Lewis. And now an opportunity for Leeds to just regroup slightly, kind of reset those emotions ahead of a huge final 9 minutes.
Yeah, well, this is a massive advantage for Leeds now, and it's so funny how a game can turn on its head in a matter of minutes. Just a couple of minutes ago, Chris Gordon was sat over a penalty, and it was looking like Leeds would be pegged back, and all of the momentum was with West Brom. Should Chris Gordon have taken Zach Dickey off when he was warned? Potentially. Lucas Chrysler on the bench could have been brought on.
I was going to say, when you said that the game was on a knife's edge, and we spoke about the prevalence of cards and the amount of warnings that Zach had been given, I said the same to myself. Lucas Chrysler has to come back on in place of the USA International. They cannot afford to go down to 4 players.
It's been a poor few minutes. Chris Gordon knows that I am one of his biggest fans. This game, there needs to be more cards handed out here.
That's a yellow card to Dylan Kelsall. He does very well to escape that. Put the full power on that rotated intention into the side of Matt Gilbert. But yeah, it is a miracle that we've seen 2 cards in this game, both of which were awarded to Zach Dickey as it's distributed out to Chris Gordon. Finds its way to Brad Bates, who's been isolated in the last 5-10 minutes. Just jumped on by Ethan Fisher, met by Chris Gordon, starting to open up. Despite being a player down, they're still brave in their intentions.
Well, they may as well go for it here, West Brom. There's literally no reason for them to try and see out a 1-0 win. It's not as if a 1-0 loss, sorry. But Chris Gordon knows that I'm one of his biggest fans, but that was a poor few minutes for him, both as a coach and as a player. Missing that penalty, didn't get it in the corner enough. And then not subbing Zach Dickey when he was given that very stern warning from Jeff Lewis. But they have got a chance now here, West Brom.
Yeah, absolutely they do. Via an indirect free kick. Again, it's only one target for Brad Bates to aim at, and that is the side of Chris Gordon, and that's why Dylan Kelsall is just hugging the back of his chair so he doesn't get that rotation. Controls just out of his path, flicked into the box, trapped by Ethan Fisher. Just patiently waiting for the gap to present itself, which it doesn't. Corner ball, which will be taken by Brad Bates. Again, this has been a fantastic game. Fiery, passionate, fantastic advert for the National League.
Yeah, it's been exactly what we hoped it would be. But it's a tough one for West Brom. They've played really well, especially in this second half.
The ball placed down. This is either a good chance for West Brom or a second for Leeds. Look at that, how brave that approach is. Had Lewis Harris got a little bit more direction, it would have set Dylan Kelsall away, who swipes towards the ball. And the West Bromwich Albion goal, remarkably, 35 minutes gone, it's still Leeds 1, West Bromwich Albion 0. It's better from West Brom, just flicking it off the back of Dylan Kelsall's chair to gain some territory.
I think Brad Bates has done very well since his introduction. So has Matt Gilbert, to be fair. They made a real impact on the game.
They have, certainly when they had 4 players. And then they could ensure that width a little bit more, but obviously one of them has to support centrally now as Ethan Fisher just collides with the front of Matt Gilbert. The correct decision from Jeff Lewis.
Yeah, the only thing that surprises me is that we haven't seen more yellow cards in this game, because it's been so contact heavy. I think Zach Dickey can have no complaints, because if he wasn't already on a last warning, I think the tackle on Dylan Kelsall was almost a booking in itself. It was some of the heaviest contact you'll see. But West Brom could potentially have complaints that Kelsall could have been booked, potentially Fisher.
One thing that is for certain, irrelevant a result, this will give West Brom hopes for their chances in the Cup, firstly, and secondly, next season, when some of the younger, more inexperienced players, certainly when you're referencing the 4-out system, will be more adept and understand that role.
And I'd argue for later today as well, when they face Aspire, this will give them a big boost ahead of that game as well.
It's just the fact that Zach Dickey will be observing a suspension, which hurts them slightly.
So West Brom still going for it here, which is good to see. Good to see the spirit. I know Matt Gilbert's just lurking in that goal area, but at what point do they just say, right, let's just play without anyone in the goal and just go for it? Probably they've got another minute of this.
I'm well aware of the circumstances, but I suspect, relatively speaking, Chris and Colin Gordon will be the happier of the two coaches, because Leeds have looked a little bit toothless in this game.
Yeah, they definitely have. Similar pattern to Monday, where they went a goal up and then just got a bit lost in the game, really. And then second half, they've really not created much at all. I mean, the fact that they're arguably getting dominated now by the 3-player West Brom side is not great. I know that they're just seeing out the result, but doesn't send a huge message. But then it doesn't matter how you get your 3 points. They don't write that on the trophy at the end of the season. As there they are, they finally double their advantage. West Brom had to commit, and it's a good bit of clinical play, and Dylan Kelsall is never going to miss that opportunity.
Absolutely not. Exactly that. They just stretched them and capitalised on that brave attacking approach, spearheaded by Chris Gordon. It's unfortunate, but it's a byproduct of the system and the fact that they are down to just 3 players. And whilst the scoreline shows us 2-0, it's almost not even a 2-0 performance, but it is almost certainly going to be job done for Leeds. And these are tests they need. When the going gets tough, when the odds are stacked against you at times, that's if you can come through with favourable results and point accumulation come season's end, these are the ones you look back on as the games that have won you the title. And Ethan Fisher now is going to see a yellow.
And he's sin-binned as well. So we're down to 3v3. What is going on here at the Lee Westwood Sports Centre?
Yeah, so sin-binned as a result of dissent.
He's still got the goalkeeper top on. They need to name a goalkeeper, but we're down to 3v3.
It's the first sin bin I've seen at National League. So they're just going to switch things over as we tick over into the last minute. While we are waiting, let's see if I have clipped Dylan's goal successfully. Yeah, Ethan Fisher advancing. You're seeing how wide it is. And Dylan Kelso with that beautifully timed 180. Makes no mistake. And now it would be nothing more than a consolation, but a good opportunity for West Brom nonetheless. Maybe.
Yeah, this is one of the stranger National League games I've watched. It's been great entertainment.
It's been fascinating. I wonder if this is the boom boom or potentially into the 180 over to Brad Bates. That is incredibly disappointing from two extremely well-versed, experienced players. And we come back to the question. It's been about moments for West Brom. They've had opportunities to punish. They've had opportunities to score. They, of course, missed from the penalty spot. On a different day, they don't lose this game. They actually win it. Player of the match, Charlie. It's a tough ask.
I actually genuinely have no idea. Lewis Harris, I think, first half.
He's certainly, of the Leeds players, been kind of the coolest and the calmest.
I think Chris Gordon's had a great game in the centre for West Brom, but I simply can't give it to him because of the penalty miss. That was a really sloppy moment from a player of high quality. And also, I'm not sure about the decision-making when it came to keeping Zach on. Zach Dickey was playing well, but, you know, obviously sent off. The wingers for West Brom, I have to say, I give a lot of credit to Matt Gilbert and Brad Bates. They changed the game massively when they got added into the fray, and yeah, they've done a respectable job, but it's just not been West Brom's day, as summarised by that.
That is going to be one of the most unfortunate own goals I have ever seen in the National League. We've seen that 4-out system exploited by opposition. Not often is Chris Gordon the undoing of his own side. And I just need to put the own goal in before signalling the end. And that is full time.
So a balmy game of football. Did Leeds deserve it? I don't know. I think a point would have been fair after that, potentially. But yeah, we'll look back on this as one of the most memorable games for sure.
How's that for an own goal? I've never seen a goal scored from such distance, the whole width of the court. But Charlie, I'm going to come back to one moment, if you bear with me just a second. And it's this one. If this goes in, who knows what could have happened. 4 players for West Brom. They were in the ascendancy. It's a great save from Ethan Fisher.
It's a poor penalty, though, from Chris Gordon. If we stop it where the ball actually is placed, I mean, look, it's very central.
I mean, with penalties, you need it there and you need it there. You need to hug these posts as best possible. And to your point, they just weren't able to. Ethan Fisher giving him the eyes. Jeff Lewis closely observing. I'm just watching Ethan Fisher.
Doesn't even really move early to save it, which is rare actually. A lot of the time when there's a penalty save, it's because the keeper's moved a bit early. Yeah, it's a poor penalty from Chris Gordon on reflection. Very poor, but a good game of football. I enjoyed it. It was a bit of a strange one. Feels like we watched about 3 separate games in one there.
Just want to quickly, before we leave you, show you this incredible finish as they create that width and dispatch beautifully. But I'll show you the live league table just to conclude things. A fantastic game of football. Leeds top with 38 points from their 15 games and the most superior goal difference of any of the 12 teams in the division. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in, to myself and Charlie.